What's up everyone, Josh here, RK Motors content guru and summertime 100 octane gasoline enthusiast. Today we're going to be taking a look at this 67 Corvette Stingray. But first, today's trivia question. What was the nickname of the Corvette's original engine? So specifically we're taking a look at this 67 Stingray today to explore the idea of numbers matching, or a numbers matching drivetrain, or an original drivetrain. But first, a little bit of history on the car. Corvette Stingray this was the first generation of the Stingray name, and it's pretty much synonymous with the name. So when anybody says Stingray, they're generally thinking of a C2, despite there being 3 or 4 generations of this Corvette Stingray at this point. It was the brainchild of a legendary GM designer, Bill Mitchell, and legendary GM engineer, Zora-Arkus Duntov. He's considered the father of the Corvette. And this is the generation where the Corvette really started to become a legitimate sports car. It introduced a lot of firsts to the brand: Rochester mechanical fuel injection, hotter small blocks, big block power. Along with that added power, there were a lot of tricks under the car. So 1963, for example, was the introduction of the Z06 package. It was a track-focused package back then, just as it is today. So when you would option a fuel-injected 4-speed car with a positive traction differential, you got a bigger sway bar, better shocks and springs, and a large fuel tank. Of course, this focus on motorsports was inspired a number of concept cars. So you had like the Corvette SS, the Stingray Racer, and probably the most famous, the Serv 1, which was the Corvette's first foray into mid-engine architecture. This particular Stingray, in correct Goodwood Green paint, one of the best colors in my opinion, is an all-original body. It's a 3-owner car with currently 45,000 miles on the odometer. It's a detailed ground-up restoration, as you can probably tell, really nice. So what that 3-owner, why that's significant is we have a full ownership history, and that kind of ties into what we're going to talk about as far as numbers later in this video. So that, the goal of today, the goal of a numbers matching or original or documented car is to prove that everything is correct, everything is original. So this is a fully documented car, and when we say that at RK Motors, we mean that we have some kind of evidence of when the car was purchased or some kind of factory evidence that the car is correct. That ties, in the case of this car, into this. So this is a warranty booklet. This would have been given to the buyer of the car when it was purchased. So we have the customer's name and essentials, we have the delivery date, and we have the Chevrolet dealer that the car was sold at. This is the protective plate that comes with the warranty booklet. It's pertinent information for anyone who would have wanted to work on the car back in the day. These days, it's important because it builds the authenticity for collectors. So from right to left, you have the interior code, the paint code, the car's VIN, the carburetor code, which is in this case is important because we're dealing with an L79, so it would have been a Holly. The engine code on the second line, far right, the axle code, and then the third line is the transmission code. So this is basically a record of the different components that were in the car when it was sold and the first owner, and we can reference these numbers and compare them to the numbers on, say, the engine for originality's sake or numbers matching sake. So under the hood, we have a really nice professionally built L79 327. Those of you that know Chevrolets know that the L79 was a pretty hot motor, 350 horsepower, really nice in these Corvettes and really nice in the Novas. So when we're verifying the authenticity or originality of an engine, the first thing we're going to look at is the casting number. On Chevrolets, that's right back here. So this casting number does come back to an L79 327, but it also can come back to a 302 and a 350. Chevrolet did that a few times where they use the same block for different displacements. So the next thing we're going to look at is the casting date, which is right back here on the engine block. So this casting date is a January of 1967 casting date, which corresponds great to the January of 1967 build date on the car's body tag. So that's a hint that we could be dealing with an original motor. A correct Holley carburetor. So there's a number on the carburetor that we can reference. We can find out exactly what period it's from. A correct winter's intake. Once again, another casting number. We can reference the period that piece is from. After that, the next thing we're going to go to is the suffix code and stamped VIN, which is right here on the front of the block. So this is an HT suffix code. That does correspond to a high-performance 4-speed posi Corvette engine. Looking good there. And then the partial VIN, which on Corvettes they started stamping in 1960, is right beside that. So the problem here with this car is we have an anomaly in the VIN. It is the correct VIN, and it very well could be the original engine for the car, but it does have an anomaly. So we're not calling it the original engine. We're just calling it a correct 327. A lot of this information is also on the protector plate of the car. So by now, those of you who are good with Chevrolet codes have probably noticed that this is not the correct interior for this car. It was a standard black interior originally, which was the predominant color for interiors in these cars. But the saddle looks really nice with a Goodwood Green. So pretty basic 67 Corvette stuff in here. You got a dual cowl dash, which Chevrolet still employs on a lot of their models. Got some optional headrests, fully functional shifter. Some of these shifters, if they're reproductions, they won't do that. Telescopic steering wheel. And a wood grain steering wheel. Looks like wood grain. 67, you couldn't get an actual wood wheel. The teak wheel option in Corvettes was 65 and 66 only. Really nice setup, really nicely done restoration. Okay, let's lift the car up and take a look at some of the numbers and restoration on the bottom side. First things first, 1967 was the first year of Chevrolet rally wheels on the Corvette. Moving under here, this was something that Zora Arcus Duntov fought really hard for, an independent rear suspension. Of course, everybody who knows anything about racing or motorsports knows how important that is for performance. This began the transverse leaf spring on Corvettes, which survived all the way through the 7th generation of the car. It's something that people who got outran by Corvettes loved the pan on the 6th and 7th generation of the cars. Overall, very nice restoration, as you can tell. Really clean floors. Up front, power steering became an option in 1963. This car has 4-wheel disc brakes, which became an option in 1965, I believe. You could still get drum brakes, but most cars were disc brakes, better for performance. So in looking at the car's transmission, we're going to try to, find out if it's correct or date correct, which is a little bit better, or original numbers matching. So we take a look at the casting number, and it's a Muncie casting number for 1966 and 67. So that's good news. Take a look at the date stamp or the assembly stamp, and it's P, which is every Muncie transmission has a P. 7 for 1967, we got a date code. And then it looks like A16, which is January 16th. So that date corresponds nicely to the trim tag on the car. Remember, the body was assembled in January. And then we're going to take a look at the VIN, which in this case is right here. So first off, that is a little bit of a strange location for the VIN, so that's an alarm. Secondly, the VIN just doesn't match. So we're going to say this is not an original transmission. It's just a date correct transmission. From there, we'll move to the rear axle, or axles really in this case. So you're going to find the stamp right here, and it's pretty simple. You're going to have a prefix that's going to say this car is a posi traction rear end with 411 gears, which lines up nicely with an L79 motor, and it has 110 of 67 as the production date. So you can't really verify that this is original because there's no VIN, but you can say it's a correct rear end. So overall, just a really nice build, really nice restoration, very correct car. Hope you guys enjoyed this little delve into the numbers on a Chevrolet. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, and hit the comments. Let us know what your answer is to the trivia question, and let us know what you'd like to see. Thanks.